there friends, how's it going today? So I'm excited to bring to you a little lead guitar improv lesson for you, right? This is going to be taking a simple chord progression. I'm going to show you how you can use a relatively small cluster of notes on your fretboard, and I'm going to show you how you can improvise, okay? This is something that in the past year I've gotten a bit more experience with, and I'm going to answer this question, Jason, that you sent in here. So Jason, first up, thanks for your membership over on my Song Notes website, and thanks for posting this question in the community forum. So you ask about how you're not sure how to articulate my question, but I'm glad you tried here. When using a scale to improvise over chord progressions, is there a right and wrong way to do it? For example, in the easy tune of Wagon Wheel in the key of G, when the chord transitions from a G chord to a D chord, do you want to be on a G note or a D note, right? Or does it not really matter as long as you're in the scale? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm totally new in trying to improvise. So Jason, I'm gonna help you out here. I gave you a quicker response earlier, but I wanna do this sort of lesson because I think what I'm gonna show will apply to anyone else who's in the same shoes. If you'd like to get into any kind of lead guitar or improvising or doing a solo here and there, whether you're acoustic or electric player, whether you're in open position or you wanna learn some places to play outside of open position, all the concepts I'm going to show you here are going to apply. All right, so let's get into it here really quick. Just all the notes and tabs I'm going to show, the diagrams and everything, I have available as a PDF you can download, right? It's over on my website, songnotes.net. And I also have a couple jam tracks. They're going to go over this progression. So you can find those over on my website as well. It's a really great thing to use to practice. The tracks are about 5 minutes long, so it's kind of perfect for these little practice sessions where you can get in, put the track on, use some of the concepts I'm showing you, practice some of these phrasing things, and then it'll end and take a break and you can rinse and repeat. You can use the slower version, the faster version, but you get the idea. Thanks to all of you who are supporting me over on my Song Notes website. It keeps the lights on and helps make these lessons possible. But let's get into answering this, Jason. So first up, the short answer to your question, right? You asked about as we go from a G chord to a D chord, right? And then an E minor and a C. Which notes do we play when the different chords you're playing, right? Now you asked about if we were to, be on a G note for a G chord and then a D note for a D chord and an E note for an E minor and a C note for a C major. Yes, but, and it's a really big but, right? Those notes are gonna sound good over those chords, but here's the thing, and this is one of the big takeaways to understand, right? Whenever there is a chord being played, right? No matter how simple or complicated a song is, whether it has 2 chords or 15 chords, there's only one chord being played at a time, okay? And it's important to understand that chords are built up with generally just 3 notes, right? A root, a third, and a fifth. It might be a major third or a minor third. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to understand the difference there for today's lesson. But understand that when we move through these chords, see the notes that are written underneath these chords? Those are going to be what we're going to call the chord tones. Those are the notes that are sort of creating that chord. And the short answer, Jason, is any of the notes, any of the chord tones per whatever chord is being played are going to sound good while that chord is being played, okay? So if a G chord is being played, we can play a G note. We can also play a D note, or we could play, right, a B note, because those are the 3 notes that give us the G major chord. They're all gonna sound good. So hopefully that kind of answers part of your question right there. But I wanna talk about how to practice this in a sort of helpful way. Because lots of times, especially in my earlier lessons from many years ago, I would just show you the full fretboard and say, hey, here's the notes in the G major scale, just play the notes that match the chord tones, and right, that can be totally overwhelming. And here's what I'm gonna do in today's lesson, right? I'm gonna pick off a really small part of the fretboard. So check this out. We're gonna be up here between fret 7 and 10, okay? And we're only gonna be on the thinnest 3 strings. This is gonna be a really small area of notes, but these notes in the diagram right here are all the notes in a G major scale, okay? We're just gonna use this one G as our home base, as our root note, okay? This is gonna be the note that, we're in the key of G, so this is gonna sound like home. Now, I wanna show you the different notes we're using. If we go up in pitch, right? We're going up the G major scale from G to A to B to C to D and back down again. Okay? Think of this as an inventory of notes, almost like an inventory of ingredients that you have on the counter when you're about to make pie or tacos or something, right? And then likewise, we can go down. Now what I showed you there is we're only gonna go up from this note to this note, and then down to this note. So think of this as, this is our home base, right? Think of this as the house, right? This is our home. We can go out in the front yard or maybe up the steps. We also can go out the back door or down the steps. But we want to come back to the house, come back to home. So this might be a different way to think about scales, but again, these are all the notes that are in G major, right? We're just going to have one root note though. We can go up, we can go down. Now I wrote out the tab here. The tab is showing you the fret numbers right on each string, but it's also showing you those note names written in red. I don't think I've ever written things up in this way before. I just want to make sure you understand the inventory of notes we're going to be using. Now, when we're improvising, we're going to be pulling and choosing, picking and choosing, just taking these notes off the shelf or off the counter, making think of tacos instead of a pie. What I like about tacos is you're going to eat more than one usually, and sometimes you want more guacamole in this one, or more hot sauce, or more lime, or more lettuce, or less cheese, or less meat. You can kind of mix it up as part of your meal, and that's what improvising is like. It's like an inventory of ingredients, these notes. And we can sort of pick and choose, use certain notes more often than others. A really other quick thing I want to say about this inventory of notes is we can simplify it by doing this. And this is going to show us the pentatonic scale. Now the pentatonic scale and the major scale, the major pentatonic and the major scale are directly related. The pentatonic just gets rid of two of the notes, right? The fourth and the seventh note in the major scale are gone. But I share this because this is something that's worth practicing at the same time as the major scale. And if anything, I would think of this as almost your starter, right? This is kind of just, hey, I want a taco with meat, cheese, and lettuce, right? Go. Right? Now, if you want to get fancy and you want to add some onions or a certain kind of hot sauce, then maybe you need those extra notes that the major scale gives you. But my point is, learn both of these scales, right? Yeah, I'm kind of playing them fast there. But you want to get your hand comfortable with the motion here. Now, this is a great little neighborhood of the fretboard to do this with. I just played the major scale, but if we did pentatonic, okay, we're starting on the root note, we're ending on the root note, whether we're going up and then back down or down and then back up. Okay, so that's first thing I want to just get out of the way is this is the inventory of notes we're going to be using. It's all key of G major stuff here. Okay, now let's look at the chord progression that we're going to go through here. So again, it's going through, now I'll put on the backing track actually. We can play along, okay, and we can hear, I'll do a single strum and open position of each of these chords. 1, 2, 3, I do 2 measures of counting in, right? G, D, E minor, to C, then G, and D, then to C. Okay? C again, and the whole thing repeats. Now, that's going to be the sort of progression we're going to move through over and over and over again. Now, Jason, to your question, you initially asked, when a G chord is being played, which notes do I play? Well, I already talked about these chord tones, right? Notice how, look at the G, the D, the E minor, the C. See the chord tones that each of those chords are built with? Notice how each of those notes are found in the major scale that we looked at, right? And the pentatonic scale includes most of them. There's a few notes that are missing from some of these chords in the pentatonic scale. So the pentatonic scale will work for most of the things we're going to do, but we might need to use the major scale in other cases here. But you asked about, do we just play, the root note of each chord while that chord is being played? Here's what that would sound like if we did that, okay? You could do that, but it would sound a bit just dry and boring. So I'm going to play the root note of each chord as the chord is being played. Let me put the backing track on. Whoops. It's our G. It's our D. It's our E. And our C. Now this sounds fine. Well, that's an E actually. I could play them a few times. But just doing those notes isn't going to sound melodic. It's not going to sound musical. It's kind of limited, right? We want to bring in some other notes. But again, all we have to do is look at the chord tones that each chord is built with, and we can play any of those chord tones over whatever chord's being played, and it's going to sound good. Now, there's more to it than this, but I just want to show you how even if we just played these chord tones, it's immediately going to open things up and sound a lot more musical. So check this out. I'm going to go through the progression again. This time I'm going to play just a one note per chord. And the note I play is going to be one of the chord tones for that chord. But just listen to the melody that this already starts to introduce in the way I'm going to play it. Okay, so let me play this jam track again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it one more time. Playing with the rhythm. Let's do different chord tones. I've already started to notice that this is kind of sounding like Wagon Wheel, right? I'm kind of just outlining that main melody, right? Heading down south to the land of the pine, da 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 da. Now here they go. Then I see headlights. All right, let me do it again. Rock me, baby, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, baby, any way you feel. Oh, mama, rock me. Okay, I was just playing the sort of broad stroke outline of the main melody. Now, when they sing the song, whether it's Old Crow Medicine Show or whether it's Darius Rucker, there's lots of swoops and scoops and all kinds of vocal embellishment going on there. But these are the main notes that are being played. And here's the next thing I want to show you, is we can take the same progression and we can land on those chord tones, right? On the one count, it's kind of the strong beat. But on later in the measure, I'm going to add in some other notes from the major scale to kind of transition to the next note. So check this out. Notice how this is going to start to bring in melody. But the golden notes you're going to see are the sort of strong notes or the main melody notes, right? The kind you would be like, yeah, if you were singing at the concert or something, you know, rock me, baby, like a wagon wheel, rock me, baby. You know, the part where I'm pointing, it's like the strong beat. Okay, so check this out, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's another one. Another one. Okay, so what I showed you there, again, the circle, number one, all these notes are coming from the major scale cluster I showed you. It's not that many notes, it's not that many strings. Again, you practice this and you realize how many melodies you can make from using these notes, okay? And hopefully you kind of got the sense of like, oh yeah, that melody sounded like Wagon Wheel, whether it's the verse or the chorus or anything, right? So that's kind of the main thing I want to show you here is all we need is a small number of notes, but the magic comes from, where the magic comes from is when you land on a chord tone, especially like on the one count of each measure. When the chord changes, just whatever note you're playing, make sure it's one of the notes that is in that chord and you're going to be in good shape. Okay, so that's kind of the sort of mathematical or the sort of technical explanation. But this next part is really important, Jason and everyone else. It's about using your ear, okay? And we're gonna go off the script a little bit here. I showed you some tabs earlier. I wanna talk about how you can use your ear now to do this. You take the same cluster of notes. We're gonna go through the progression, but you wanna just be able to train your ear to say, hey, does this note sound good over the chord that's being played? And if the note you're playing doesn't sound good, all you have to do is go one note higher or one note lower and say, does that one sound good? And just because there's very few notes we're using, right? the odds of you hitting a chord tone are going to be really good in your first 2 tries. And you can make it melodic even if you're exploring. So what I'm going to do now is put the backing track on. I'm going to show you how you can do basic improv. I have no tabs I'm following here. I'm just going to go in off the script, but I'm only using this same cluster of notes. And I want to show you what's possible. Okay, so let's start things over one more time with this jam track. And again, use your ear. And I'll give some commentary as I do this too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, sometimes you hit a note that doesn't sound good, right? I'm going to pause it right there. I'm going to give a little bit of a commentary on what I just played there. Okay, so again, I just stayed in that cluster of notes. Sometimes I landed on a note that was not perfectly meshing with the chord that was being played, right? When you do that, you don't need to panic and drop your guitar and start over. Stay on that note if you want. And like I said earlier, you can kind of go up a note or down a note and see if the next one sounds good. But sometimes you want to just own your mistake, right? You're playing a note that doesn't sound good, stay on it, and when the chord changes, that same note might then suddenly sound good. So that's kind of a cool way where you can create this kind of nice, unexpected tension that then resolves when the chord changes to whatever the next chord is, okay? So that's one little thing I want to talk about. There are no wrong notes. Think of it that way. I mean, yeah, statistically or technically, I guess, when it comes to chord tones, hey, that note's not one of the chord tones of this chord. That's okay, right? Music is all about tension, resolution, right? Sometimes you're going to have the weird tension that resolves. Now, here's another thing I want to say. Sometimes you'll run into this thing where you'll play like a motif. I think of the word motif, where you're kind of doing a certain move over and over again. This is one of my favorite ones in this position, right? From 7 to 9 to 8, right? On the 3rd and 2nd string. You can just keep trying that over each chord, and you're going to get like a different vibe over each chord. Sometimes this note might not be a chord tone, say, so you might need to then change it to a different note, right? So what I'm going to do here is demonstrate this motif over and over again. I might change it subtly for one of the chords. And here's one other thing I just want to bring up really quick, and then I'll get into another playthrough here. Look at the certain chord tones that show up in every chord. Now, there's no 100% consistency there, but look at the note G, for example. It's in the G major chord, it's in the E minor chord, and it's in the C major chord. That means this note is going to sound good in 3 out of the 4 chords that this whole thing is built with. The only one it doesn't sound good with is D, because D doesn't have a G note. But for D, we don't need to go far. We could either go down a note to this F sharp, right? Or we can go up a note to this A. But for all other chords, we can just hang out on this note. So listen to what I'm going to do as part of one of the motifs I'm going to try. Is I'm going to do this little, right, 7 to 9, and then to that G, that 8th fret note. And for the D, I'm going to have to either go to here or here, but I'm going to keep the motif going. So let's see what that sounds like. Let things start over again. Okay. Another little motif. Let's try this one. Okay, now let's go wild. Okay, so that's basically the main idea I wanted to show here as far as these repetitive little melodies we can do, and just try them out over each chord. Keep doing them, and some chords they won't sound good on, but just go up or down a note, and usually you're going to find some success there, okay? So that's going to do it for this main part of the lesson. Again, if you guys want to get this jam track to follow along with, it's over on my website, as well as my PDFs and notes and all these charts and everything, right? I'm going to show you one other thing in the second half of this lesson. It's over on that website as well, where we can take the same idea of these clusters, but we can do them in other parts of the fretboard. All we need to do is find a G. So this is another cluster we could do the exact same thing at, right? And we can connect those clusters. Okay, so that's going to be it for this main part of the lesson here. But thanks for watching. Get all the good stuff at my website, songnotes.net. Jason, thanks for posting this question. I hope this was helpful for you. And go check out part 2, where I'm going to show you some more of this stuff. Thank you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care, and bye-bye.